is there some sort of like subconscious or like unlocked fear about, well, if I healed my issues around food, if I heal my shit with money, what's going to fill that void?
We go back, like way back, 21 years back. I'm Chloe.
And I'm Kelly, and we have been friends long enough to know that that kind of connection is rare.
We've recognized a pattern that we can come together feeling overwhelmed and jaded by life, but can walk away from our conversations feeling elevated and fulfilled. Our goal is to have our listeners share in that experience with each episode.
This podcast is our love letter to each other. It has been years in the making, and finally the stars have aligned, and we like to open up our conversations to you. We intend to build a community where no topic is off the table.
In a world where discomfort is actively avoided, therapy is not accessible to many, yet you should talk to a therapist, is a reflex response that denies connection. We have found that talking it out has been a form of free therapy in itself.
We dive into topics like death, divorce, disordered eating, debt, and every taboo topic in between, all while balancing the scales with our tongue-in-cheek humor.
With that,
Who's ready to get taboo?
Okay. Hello, everyone.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Welcome back.
Welcome back, or welcome for the first time if you're new. Welcome to Let's Get Taboo.
Let's get taboo.
I'm Chloe.
I'm Kelly.
And we're your hosts.
Yeah. Hi, guys.
That's
We're
cute.
hosts. We're hosts, Chloe.
We're hosts.
We're real hosts
Okay.
with real microphones.
With real mics.
Look at us.
Okay. My cousin DM'd me and he was like, what's that ASMR mic? And I was like, Joey, gotta pay the bills, okay?
Yeah, come
Leave me
on,
alone.
man. This is going to be my career.
Anyway, yeah.
Just kidding.
I'm like, the day job is not cutting it.
No, never.
No.
As a
Anyways,
nurse.
what you up to? What you been doing?
I just got back from a nice little staycation
Oh, cute.
with a girlfriend. Yeah, we actually were in McMinnville, which is like wine country in Oregon. Also a former hometown of mine. And
yeah.
that was spicy. But yeah, just drank
Was there
some-
nostalgia?
You know, I actually hadn't been back there, like really been back there. We drove through and I ate lunch there a few years ago, but like I hadn't visited McMinnville since I lived there before I moved into our neighborhood that we met in. So it was trippy, like just different things hitting me at once, of like different memories that I've been experiencing that a lot lately, like random nostalgia or like memories that I have been in the recesses of my mind that have been brought up by force, and not in a bad way, but like we were driving down this highway and all of a sudden I was like, that is a drive-in type style restaurant, and they used to have real monkeys. And
Wait, I'm sorry.
no,
what?
I know. P.S.
I was ready for you to say like they used to have like real malt milkshakes,
That
or they
too.
used to. I was not ready for monkeys.
Malt with a
And
side
you
of
just-
monkey.
and you just moved
Yeah.
on like you were about to tell the rest of your story.
Yeah, monkeys. Anyway, you know, restaurants with monkeys in cages. No big deal. McMinnville things, by the way.
Is that?
I don't know. McMinnville is the cutest town ever, though. Like, I feel...
It's so cute.
It is, like... We did something right. There's a couple towns in Oregon that are small towns that are so damn cute.
Yeah.
And McMinnville, I just like don't...
It feels like the set of Gilmore Girls.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I called it. Like the Stars Hollow of the West Coast, of the Pacific
cute.
Northwest. Like
Yeah.
we were walking down the main strip and I was like, God, that, like, I'm not a small town girly, but I could do
This
it.
I could do. Well, it reminds me of Walla Walla, where over where Kevin's family is from.
Right.
Kev is my man, and his family's over in Eastern Oregon. Well, Walla Walla is technically Washington; it's right over the border, but whatever.
You can lump them together.
But the first time I went to Walla Walla, I was like, oh my gosh, this reminds me so much of McMinnville, and it's also wine country over there.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. There's wineries everywhere, so we should go over and do a weekend. I think it'd be so fun.
I'm down.
His mom works for one of the wineries over there.
So we could go and not spend a shit ton of money, because that was my
Correct.
only thing.
Oh yeah, when we go, like they kind of take care of us.
Okay, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's the energy I need, because we had the hardest time. We were idiots, and we went on a Monday through Wednesday. Most wineries there or vineyards close until Wednesday. So that was weird. And then also vineyards, like we didn't start going like wanting to drink until 3, and they all mostly closed at 4. So we were like, what the hell? We stumbled upon one that was absolutely perfect. Like you could see the whole valley, the vineyards. I felt like I was in Hallie Parker's house from Parent Trap.
Yes.
Like,
I've been thinking about that movie so
dude,
much lately.
Dude, that day, the ultimate DILF. That was the first DILF where I was like, oh, I'm into older men. And I was 4 when I watched that movie.
Okay.
We'll address that at a different time.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, it was lovely. But then we got our bill. We did one sampler and we shared it.
Okay.
And it was $100.
Oh.
No food.
Oh.
So if we
Did
could
you bring your
go-
own snacks?
No
Oh.
food. No food.
Oh.
Yeah, it was super cute. It was the deepest shade of purple and was so tipsy, but it was so fun. It was
Wow.
It was a lot, but I would love to do that. And like, well, yeah, I think that if I went and it was like a cheaper experience, it would have been more fun.
Yeah,
I felt
or
like
if
an
we
adult.
were, yeah, it is.
I'm a grown up.
I think there is something that feels so adult about wine tasting or like
Yeah.
being at a vineyard or winery.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
I was not dressed appropriately.
Oh, what were you wearing?
I don't know. Every bitch that was there was in like a sundress with a floppy hat and looked so cute.
Yeah.
I was in a bodysuit, like my spaghetti strap one and sneakers.
And like jeans, cargos, what?
No, like it was like my onesie. You know, like my little, like it was like my skin
Oh,
tight.
I
the
see.
butt was out.
Yeah.
The titties were out.
Yeah.
I was like a slutty vineyard girl.
Oh, I'm for that.
Yeah, I didn't look as
Why
like,
do you want to look like everyone else?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I really have this fear around not like, I just feel like vibes for outfits.
Say less. I know exactly what you're talking about. I was
Yeah.
just talking about this weekend where nothing makes me more uncomfy or want to crawl out of my skin when I'm over or underdressed for the occasion.
And I don't know which is worse, if you're overdressed or underdressed. They're both terrible.
Yeah, I really can't pick one that makes me feel more comfortable or less comfortable. Like they both are to me equally as.
I feel like with underdress though, I think that one for me is a little bit worse because with overdress, at least I can be like, but damn, I do look good.
Yeah, I will give you that. I
do look good.
But then I'm self-conscious. I'm like, or like what I'll do is I'll like look to the other girls. I'm like, wow, well, she's not wearing makeup. I look overdone. Or
Totally. And she looks effortless and I am
chic,
not.
and I'm like,
effort.
Like if I'm overdressed, I'll look to the girl in sweats and I'm like,
Yeah.
she's so cool.
Yeah. Totally.
But if I'm the girl in sweats, I'm looking at the girl that comes in the leather jacket and the jeans and like the hair. And I'm just like, oh, she's so cool.
I remember where the hell were we? We went out for your dad's birthday and I think I was actually in that bodysuit. Apparently I live in that bodysuit.
I almost wore that same outfit
to
that dinner.
And you were fucking pissed because you were like, I am wearing goddamn jeans and everyone's casual.
Yeah.
And I think it does kind of take
everyone
away.
showed up in yoga pants. And I'm like, I could have worn what I was actually wanting to wear.
Be comfortable in. Because then it's like, people think it's dumb, but it takes away from you being, at least for me, I'm not as present if I'm uncomfortable in what I'm wearing.
Yeah, and that's the thing for me right now. Like, none of my jeans fit me right now.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to go out and like do social things when I feel like I don't have a wardrobe that supports it.
Completely.
It's hard.
It's debilitating.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it is. Like, I'd call me like, I don't know, vain or surface
No,
level,
I don't
but
think so because I experienced, it reminds me of when I had acne really, really bad. Like it reminds me so much of that feeling. Like it feels like everyone's looking or it feels like everyone's paying attention and that's just not the case.
Right. It's not the case.
But it's debilitating.
It is,
It's truly like it's just hard. Like that body image type of stuff to be in like in new settings or whatever. But like, okay, let's say too that you'd been to a vineyard before.
Yeah.
You know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
You've been the girl that's dressed up and you're like, fuck it, I'm not doing that this time. Like I'm going to go in this. That wouldn't even be like, cause you would have like intentionally chosen it.
Oh yeah. It is really situational, isn't it?
Yeah. Cause if you knew what you were getting into and like, it wasn't your first rodeo, so to speak, you know, then you could be like, no,
then
I'm not going to do that.
Because that was by choice.
Yes.
But it was like I went into a blind and it was like all real life adults, which I am a real life adult, but like people in their like 40s that like were like, oh, the Chardonnay.
Yeah, they know
sort
what to
of
say.
an
They're like
oaky
swirling.
afterbirth.
They're like putting their nose and they're like, oh, look at these legs. I'm like,
what do
does that
people
mean?
say about wine that it's corked or it's how do people describe wine? See, I don't belong in a winery. When you take off the cork and you let it breathe, it's something with a T.
Will you let it breathe in one of the?
Well, yeah, in one of the glasses, or like there's like
Decanter?
decanters too. But there was some word that people were saying like it needs to. Oh man, this is really embarrassing. You know what? Disregard it.
We're not wine girls.
We're not wine girls. The point is, I drink
love
wine. I fucking love wine.
Yeah.
Never thought I would say that.
No, but I love it. I'm very picky. There's like I don't like shards. I don't like really like full bodied things. I like a dry, very smooth.
I like a red. I just need like a red that like is really tart and because like
you like tart.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah,
hate
you
sour
love
candy.
sour, yeah.
Sour candy and pickles are my main
I think we're
diet.
getting to the bottom of your acidity problems.
Relax.
Anyways.
Relax. Oh my God. All my fucking cankers. Okay. We're not going to spiral.
No.
Yeah, we had some like Chardonnays that were like melon foul.
Not for me.
I don't like melon unless it's watermelon as is. So then you're going to put that in a goddamn wine. It was like drowning in like, and I like sweet, but it was just like, it didn't have that like refreshing, like I'd have a red and I was like, ooh.
See, I like a Pinot Noir, which is the reds,
yeah.
you know, or a Malbec. They're both like on the drier, like a lighter finish. Like I don't like a really full body, like a mouth, like heavy mouth feel.
See, I don't
Do you know
what
I mean? You know what? I think actually, you know what helped me in this area is working in craft coffee because there's so much crossover in the language.
There is, totally.
And like we did cuppings all the time, which is like the tastings basically.
Yeah.
So I think that's where I learned a lot of this.
It is
or how I think I can apply it a little bit to wine.
Totally.
Even though I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
I don't know what as long as it tastes good with whatever food I'm eating.
Yeah, exactly. I am like I care more about like what cheese and crackers I'm pairing it with.
Yeah, I could talk more about cheese than
or
I could
steak.
Wine. Oh, you and your meats. You and your meats.
I'm a meat girl. Well, you touched on the money part.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So I kind of want to like just get into it. I think that's money. A good bridge.
Yeah.
We want to talk about money. So, and I think that's a really, I want to like maybe bring that experience back into this conversation, kind of loop it back in.
Do it.
But we want to talk about like mindset with money, our relationship with money, kind of how we grew up around it.
Yeah. Breaking down
struggles.
Yeah. And like, just break it. Like, why don't we talk about money more?
Yeah.
Why is it that it makes us so uncomfortable? And I think it's that we all have some sort of like anxiety or shame around money, but they're very different. It's varied in so many different ways, no matter your like social, like your status class or whatever.
Yeah.
Like how you exist in the world. There is some sort of insecurity everyone has around money.
Yeah.
So I think people avoid talking about it.
Yep.
And I also think people have no idea what the fuck they're doing a lot of the time.
So and everyone's just kind of faking it.
Are we all faking it till we make it?
It feels that way sometimes.
I'm almost 30 and I'm still faking it until I make it.
No.
So.
And well, I think that I mean, a big thing is, right, like one of the bigger taboo things around money is like no one talks about how much money they make, right?
Ever.
That's like a very taboo thing to talk about.
And why is it rude? Like that's always been like an etiquette thing. Like you never ask someone how much money they make. I've been told that many times.
Yeah, but like why?
But why? If you have a certain job and you make X amount of money, is it that you're ashamed of how much you make? Is it that there's an expectation of how much?
Yeah.
Why is that like a general social? I do think that rule has fizzled out a little bit.
I do too.
But it's there.
Still, like we've never talked about how much money we each make.
Fuck no.
Right?
To be honest, yeah. And I don't really know why that. I guess for me personally, it's a shame thing. Like I really struggle with feeling like I'm not catching up to everyone or like I'm not on the same timeline. And so, I don't work a typical career type job. I work an hourly paid job and I have a lot to work through with shame around that. At the age I'm at the education level I have, I feel like I should be making more.
Oh yeah.
And so I will fully own that the minute pay comes up or the minute I talk about what my job is, I clamp. I feel that like in your throat, like I don't want to talk about this.
Oh, interesting. I can relate because I think before I went back to school this time around, I had that same kind of fear. Like someone, like it was always like my dad's friends or my, like, like the Gen X and like boomer generation for
They're
whatever
scary.
reason when they ask like, well, what do you do for work? And I'd be like, oh, well, I, XYZ.
Yeah.
Whatever job I was doing at the time. I was like managing a coffee shop for a long time. Then I worked in real estate for like a blip. And then,
about that.
I know. Yeah. And so there was a lot of times like there was a shame or like I don't know, like my answer is not going to be good enough for you is what it felt like.
Yeah.
And because a lot of the time what it was met with was like, oh, well, you can't do that forever, right?
Oh, that is the story of my freaking life.
And it was like, I just can't imagine saying that to anybody.
I would never. And I do think that is it's a generational thing. I'm sorry. I really try to not do the like different generations or so like dividing us all. We all are problematic. But I will say that I would never hear someone's job. Like if another 29-year-old looked at me and said, "Oh, I'm working at a coffee shop still because it makes me happy," I'd be like, "Fucking dope, dude." It's simple. I miss working in coffee so much, minus the politics of the shops. But there's nothing wrong with not having a career.
Yes.
And I think that does go hand in hand with money.
Or what's wrong with calling that your career?
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I think at that coffee shop, like they flew me to San Francisco to go get training.
Yo, that's
you know what I
sick.
mean?
Yeah.
Like, so it's like they invested in me, like as an employee, like in their company, all those things. But I think, and I also think about now too, like in the mindset that I'm in now, I think I'd be able to enjoy that job a lot more.
Absolutely.
Because there's something really, like, I look at some of the slower paced coffee shops. Like, I don't know if you've ever been to Keeper.
Oh, yeah. That's a super famous one.
Yeah. Everybody knows about it, but I just love it.
Good.
But I feel like I could easily work in something like that at this age in my life and actually really enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because I think when I was younger and I was working in that, I had like such a sense of urgency and everything was focused on like getting this out as fast as you can.
Right.
And I think then customers expect you to make it that fast, right?
Totally.
But like now, I don't know, like I don't go there because they're fast. No. I go there because it's chill and it's nice and I get a good fucking cup of coffee.
Right.
And they're calm.
Right.
And they're not rushing around. And maybe that's a generational thing.
Well,
you know?
And I think there's something to be said about like age and growing up and that, you know, I'm in this place now where if I were to work in a coffee shop, I mean, I worked in a coffee shop not that long ago, 27, like 3 years ago, whatever the hell it was. And, you know, it was so fun and so refreshing because I was just there to make coffee. I wasn't there to prove myself. Yeah. I think when you work in a job like being a barista, that's kind of like a cool girl job. It is. Yeah. It's a cool girl job. You, at least for me, actually, I was always working toward moving up or being the next thing. And I didn't just enjoy that it's an art. Yeah. It's an artistic
That's
job.
exactly what it was. Like, I think I was so focused on like being in management and like, you know, being like productive and like, I don't know,
grinding, that grind mind. Like you can be successful and work hard, but I think my definition of working hard is so different now at 29 than it was at 18 through 27. You know what I'm saying? Like there's just different things that I prioritize. So I think now working jobs like that, like I'm still working an hourly job, but I look back at those jobs and I'm like, I wish I would have enjoyed it more. Yeah. I wish I would have appreciated it more.
Oh, exactly.
You know?
And I think I got so burnt out because of the way I was working and I attributed it to the job itself when it was actually more of like an internal personal thing.
Yeah. Like I was working double time and not getting paid enough to do it.
Oh yeah, exactly. And that's the other thing too. It's like at that job, I had to touch on the money part of it. I had benefits. I had paid time off. I had sick time.
Tips.
I walked away with cash every single day. Yeah. I got to make my own schedule. Yeah. I was off by, most days by 3 p.m. When 6:30 p.m. at the latest.
Yeah. When I was manager, I would just schedule myself the opening shift. So I was off every day at noon. Yeah. Amazing.
Where I was, our owner wanted me to be there for to see
the bulk of the day.
Yeah, to work with both the openers and the closers, which I totally get. Yeah. But I worked 7 to 3.
God, that's like the perfect shift.
Yeah.
Perfect
it really
shift.
was.
Yeah.
And then, then a lot of times I'd stay and I'd have different tasks inventory orders, whatever. Yeah. But for the most part, there was, those are things that everybody says, why you want to get a corporate job or a serious job or an adult job, whatever it is. And I already had that. Yeah. So there's all this judgment, right?
Yes.
And then I find myself I found myself at that time, having to be well, I have benefits. Yeah. Well, I have this. It's serious. Yeah. When, why am I sitting here trying to prove what I'm making? And I was making good money at the time.
Right. Well, and it's why are there asterisks? Why can't, for me, I'm a full-time nanny and I have the hardest time being okay, I'm a nanny, but I work Monday through Friday. I work 9 to 5.
I have weekends off.
I have weekends off. I have benefits. I make above minimum wage. Yeah. I have paid time off. And I love my job. Yeah. And it sucks that it's solely because of money and how much I make that I carry shame around it. Yeah. That sucks. Yeah. Because a job is such a huge part of your life and it's money is it's creating shame in my life that I don't want there.
Yes.
the amount of money I make. And I think a lot of people are like that.
Yeah.
It's and then isn't it interesting that it's like the pendulum swings too far the other way, and if a lot of people, if they make a lot of money, they also don't like to share that.
Yes.
Crazy to me.
Yes, it is, because then there's this shame of like,
so what is that happy medium?
Yeah.
And who defines that?
Yeah, and like what's the appropriate like place or
Right.
money, what am I trying, like income point?
No, that, yeah, like what is the perfect amount where we can all just comfortably say how much we make and not feel shame with it going either way?
Yeah.
What is that price? What's that amount?
I don't know.
And it's so different for all of us.
Is it like what would put you in middle class? Like, I don't know what it is.
Right. And so maybe it's more about just owning what you fucking do.
Yeah. No, there's a concept.
You know, weird. I don't know. But like in terms of money, like, yeah, I personally, I just don't like to share it.
Yeah. What was it like growing up? Like, what was money like at home? Or what were the conversations around it?
Not a lot.
Okay.
Just, so I grew up raised by a single mom. I take a lot of pride in that. My mom had me at 22, 23 maybe. I mean, youngin'.
Yeah.
I'm old enough now to look back on that and I'm like, honestly, I don't even know how to talk about money. I can't even imagine bringing another human into the world and having to teach another human about money when I think my mom was so young. She was also learning about money real time.
Yeah.
So I can't really blame her for not having those conversations. And I think there's this idea that and I'm not saying that this was for my mom. I don't want to speak for my mom, but I do think that there's so many parents who want to shield money struggles from their kids. Mm-hmm. They want to protect their kids from the realness of the world and like, oh, you shouldn't have to worry about money. My job as a parent is to not be a human and grind and make sure you have everything you could ever have and not know our financial struggle. That's how I felt like sometimes other adults in my life were. And I think while the intention is beautiful, love that intention. It's coming from such a place of love. It's so detrimental.
Yeah.
I think it's okay to say, no, we're not going to do that right now because I am budgeting and trying to make sure that we keep the lights on.
Yeah.
And there were times that my mom would be like, yeah, like, nah, she never told me money was tight. I am fortunate and grew up never knowing that we were pretty broke until I was much older.
Oh, okay.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
So do you appreciate that experience or do you wish you would have known?
I think because of how I exist in the world, as a very anxious person.
Yeah.
Always anxious and very aware. It's like I'm always looking for anxiety, and I've been like that since I was a kid.
Yeah.
I think in a lot of ways I'm grateful.
Okay.
I am.
That she kept it from you.
That she kept it from me.
Or kind of didn't bring you into.
Right. Like she really tried to shield me from it. And really, I truly never felt like I was without.
Okay.
That's incredible. Because I think that hiding that you're broke is really hard to do. Even as an adult now, like live pretty impoverished. Like I'm pretty broke, and it is a dinger to the pride every time I have to be like, I actually can't go do that thing, guys, or I'm pretty fucking broke and can't go out to eat. Like that's really hard. So I can't imagine being a parent and being like, no, child, you want to do this thing, and like she never did that.
Yeah.
But now looking back, there are times where I'm like, damn, Mom, what did you have to sacrifice? Money wise, how much money did you spend at Christmas on my birthday that could have been money that would have relieved you any sort of stress? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't, it's really not about things when you're a kid. I'm quality time always. And my mom, I never lacked quality time with my mom. My mom made me her whole damn world. Even when she eventually, remarried and had other kids, she never... like that never went away. Okay. So I feel like sometimes she maybe overspent on my Christmases. My Christmases were epic and I love that. But I look back and I'm like, damn, Mom, I wish you would have told me and just like we had a conversation about it as I got older.
Yeah. And that's hard too, because it's like, at what point are your kids like old enough to have those conversations?
Especially
right?
because, we've talked about and you'll hear about a lot, and I'm sure going forward, the old soul thing.
Yeah.
I was old enough to have those conversations, I think younger than a lot of kids. And I feel comfortable saying the same for you.
Yeah.
And I also think we're naturally curious people.
Yeah.
So I started to wonder, like, how is mom pulling this off,
Yeah.
And I think if there was extra money there, I think I would have we didn't go on a ton of trips. We didn't travel a ton.
Okay.
We didn't travel really when I was a kid, because money was tight. And I'm like, so selfishly maybe shifting that money that she spent on me into other things.
Oh, yeah.
Not that I'm not grateful.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. Like, I don't want to feel like I'm criticizing my mom.
Right.
She did a great job.
Yeah.
But as a kid, I wonder how it would have been different if I had, would I have learned more about money if we had had those conversations when I was a little bit younger? How my adulthood would have been shaped differently if I had had a concept of how hard it is to make ends meet, because I had no idea. And I was shook when I moved out for the first time and was like, damn,
But I also think sometimes that's too much for a kid to be able to comprehend, because I feel like it was quite the opposite in my household.
Yeah. In what
way? I feel like my parents both, my parents were separated, but they equally talked about there being no money.
Oh,
so
wow.
I'm
stressed just hearing
remember,
that.
yeah. And so I remember being a kid and being like, this isn't my job to know this. This isn't my problem.
Point. Wow. So
and
real.
I remember one time being saying I'm a kid. I shouldn't have to know this.
Oh, yeah. That's an interesting way to look at it, is that, we've also talked so much about how there are times that we felt like there were very adult problems that were put on us as kids and that was so detrimental. So I think that's a really good point, is kids shouldn't have to worry about money.
Yeah.
And is explaining that there is no money, is that a healthy way to expose kids to what money is?
Well, I don't think it is, because and I'm happy to take a stance on that, because I think that it creates limits around a limited thinking around money.
Oh,
and it creates a lot of lack mindset around money when you don't have a full comprehension of what it is.
You're just getting one part of the story.
Yes,
right?
exactly. And so all I'm getting is the fear story, right?
So
then I grew up thinking money is something to be feared.
They shaped your narrative.
Yes,
right away.
exactly.
That money is scary.
Exactly.
Or
and
lack thereof.
Well, and you think about too, kids kind of being these pure kind of beings, and they haven't been conditioned by the world yet.
Clean palates.
Yeah. And I think kids are so intuitive for that reason. I see so many videos in my feed of kids just taking themselves out of the equation to go lay down in the dirt to ground themselves.
I'm going to start doing that.
And I'm because they know how to regulate their system, right?
Yeah.
So they haven't been conditioned yet to blow by all these ways that your body's communicating that are saying, I need a break. I need rest.
Right.
I need to ground. I need to, take a step back from everything.
Yeah.
And I think that money part of it is just another one of those things, another one of those things that we're conditioned to think about it in a certain way. Right?
Yeah.
Totally. So that was something that was really challenging. And the way money looked in both households was very different. I had one household that we had a new house and a new car and all these things. But it was still this no, we don't have any money for that. No, we can't buy that because there's no money. And just this narrative around there being nothing. Right. But then in the other household, water's getting shut off, cables getting shut off, whatever it is. But then we're going on trips and vacation.
Well, and that's so confusing.
Yes.
Because, and it's as a parent, not to cut you off, but I guess what would be really challenging is that because there's so many layers to money and how money is spent and things like loans and credit, that it's at what point as a parent do you decide, well, if I pull at the string, you kind of have to explain it all. And how much can a kid take in, because it is confusing. You're saying there's no money, but if there was a new car, maybe your mom took out a loan, but that's confusing because you're I always was confused by that as a kid. How can we be so broke? I'm more thinking about my dad. This was never my mom. My dad had multiple children, lots of kids, and was remarried. And it was, oh, we're so broke. We don't have money. We have all these kids to support. But then he would get a brand new fucking truck. And I was like, or we would like go on a vacation. And I was like, if we're so broke.
Yeah.
How does your life, and because I had no concept of like, just because you're broke doesn't mean that you can't find ways to get new things. Yeah. So I guess it's like, how do you explain that?
I think another piece of it too is like, maybe it's just like choosing where you're allocating your money.
Absolutely.
So it's like, okay, well, if I don't pay this bill, but I'm still putting money in this savings for this trip or whatever it is, it's like, you're kind of just like moving money around.
Yeah, exactly.
But it still is like it's not a great long-term plan, right?
Yeah,
and
it's not
I've been, like, and I know other people whose parents is just like they've never had a savings and like they're borrowing money from their kids, and like that's also something that is really, I think, it's a challenging thing to be a kid and lend your parent money.
Yeah,
and that's like because you feel like it's this dirty secret, right?
Right.
Where it's like, oh, like, we really don't have enough, or like all my friends, that's the other piece of it. Like you're comparing it to like other families that and all you see is the outside view.
Right.
And I remember like my sister and I went to private school, but we were always there on like tuition assistance or like financially.
Right.
So it's like someone asked where we go to school, and it's like, oh, we go to like this Catholic school.
This
and they're like,
really good school.
You must, oh, wow, your parents must be rich. It's like, no, actually I'm there on like aid.
Yeah.
I'm not there because we can afford it.
Right.
And then, so it's just like this, it's like very layered things. So then it's like not wanting people to know that you're like, you don't have a lot of money,
right?
But then also being embarrassed when someone's like, oh, you guys must have a lot of money. Because it's almost like you're trying to relate to whoever you're talking to, right?
Completely.
So it's like when all my friends at this school, like their parents are like super high up at like Nike or Intel or like, they're all these like wealthy people.
Right.
And they live in this really nice part of town, and they drive these nice cars, and their kids play all these club sports, and they go on all these vacations, and they'll fly me with them. It's like, it's so crazy to be so close to all that money, but then like not
be able
also,
to touch it.
Yeah, exactly. It's not yours.
Yeah, no.
And so then it creates this weird, like, I don't know. It's like you don't feel like you are like worthy to have it for yourself.
Totally.
It's like a self-worth thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then you have that experience, right? But then you talk to someone else who's more in the same boat as you, but then maybe doesn't have the same like privilege or access to these like, areas of life as you.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, but I'm like you. But they're like, no, you're not.
No, you're not. You have no idea.
Yeah, you go to private school.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
So it's just like this constant.
It's like this constant keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah,
it's this
where you don't have a place to fit either.
Yeah, and everyone does have such a different socioeconomic class, and I think what's really confusing is when you're talking about it as a kid.
Yeah.
Because again, as a kid, you don't have access to that money. You're just rolling with it, and and you're experiencing whatever your parents can provide.
Right.
So then, you throw in the fact that you're a kid and that kids are talking about money, but they don't really know what they're talking about. That's why I think it's one of the topics that I like to like imagine if and when the day comes that I have kids, like all these taboo topics that I want to talk about. Money's the one I'm the most on the fence with, because I don't know that I will ever understand or have a good enough relationship with money to feel like I'll be able to educate my kids well.
And I think I hear where you're coming from, because I think that comes down to our lack of education around it.
Completely.
So the conversation, well, no, but like if the conversation at home is we don't have enough, and then there's no other education of like, well, how do you get enough?
Right.
There's no conversation around that. Yeah. Like so my sister's partner, her family, or his family, excuse me, he like grew up with parents who taught him how to invest and like putting money in a CD4, which is, I just learned about that. I don't even know what it is.
I don't know what the fuck that is.
I don't know what it is.
That sounds like a robot.
Okay. What I understand about it, because here was the conversation that Polly and her partner were having.
Polly's her sister.
Polly's my sister. He was saying, Michael, her partner, was saying, like, well, like, let's say someone comes into like money, right? Or they're a landlord. I think this was the context that they were talking about it in. They're a landlord, And they're saying like, oh, well, there's no way they have like all that, like those deposits just sitting in a savings account. Like you would have that in a CD4 or something like that, right? Like,
Right.
you know, like, so it's at least growing or doing.
Oh.
And I was like,
What?
And Polly's like, no, here's the thing. Like, not everybody knows what that is. And he's like, what do you mean? And she's like, not everybody knows that when you get benefits at work that you have to like, or you get like a 401k, you have to like go in and select what you want your money invested in. And I was just like, I'm learning all these things in this conversation that Polly's telling him like, no, not everybody knows that. And I'm like, yeah, me, I'm everybody who doesn't know that.
We're everybody.
Because like, who teaches that? And unless your parents are having those conversations, it's up to you to go out and figure it out, right?
And even your job isn't down to educate you. They just like give you the paperwork and they're like, fucking pick one. And it's like,
I'm like, what do you mean?
And I've never worked a corporate job.
Yeah.
So then it's even worse because it's not like at a coffee shop, I have that fucking option. And like I work as a private contracted nanny. I don't have those kinds of options. It's just sign your W-4 and move on. And it just... things that are so important like that, investments, whatever that word was you said, CD4?
Yeah, dude, I don't know. We should honestly like do some research. I think it would be helpful. Yeah.
I'm feeling more dumb, but that's something I'm interested in now.
But it's like, how overwhelming it is.
It gets lost in translation. You go from being a kid in your house and being protected from money and all of the stressors that come with it, which again, I understand parents, to adulthood where you're expected to know these things, but then also they don't teach it to you in school. And it's like, how
don't even get me started
people this hard
on the school part of it.
I have never talked about money in school.
That honestly is
for how to
probably
count
one
points.
of the most infuriating things as I've gotten older and learning about this stuff. Is like,
Yeah.
why don't we teach this in school?
Taxes would be cool.
Like, I think that there are basic money principles that there should be classes devoted to it.
Yes.
I think starting in like 4th grade.
Absolutely.
3rd, 4th grade. I think you should be exposed to money principles and it should slowly build throughout
as you get older, get closer.
And then, you know, when you're in high school and like you're about to be this independent person, like you're going from having to ask to take a piss to being like allowed to go, I don't know, vote and buy a gun and smoke
join the military.
And like invest in the market and do all these things and like earn a living, you know? And I don't even know the first thing about what to do with my money.
Absolutely. I mean,
how to pay taxes or bills or anything.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's doing a real disservice when in school, the last time I talked about money was when I learned that 4 quarters equal $1.
That's literally it.
It never came to.
It's math.
And that's math. That's not even like, what is money? What is a loan? What are investments? Why is it important to have multiple bank accounts? Like,
and what to look for when you're signing a loan? Like, what
interest
are things?
Rates.
Yeah, exactly.
Great things to know when you're about to go to college. Schools. Like
that, I think is something that Kevin, my partner, and I have talked a lot about is like, because we're both new grads and we have been bent over this year as far as like our student loans go, right? Like the thing is like to be able to complete the program that we were in, we both had to take out these loans where these, like our school for whatever reason, and I don't know if this is common, but we went to a smaller private college and
it was out of state for you.
It was also out of state, but because it was private, it didn't matter.
Oh, nice.
Like in state versus out of state. It's only like universities, I guess, or like state schools, excuse me.
That makes sense.
But like our school only contracted with one bank that we could take loans from. So we couldn't even shop loans around.
So you just had to like bend over and take it.
And that's the one. Like if you didn't get enough money covered in your FAFSA application, like you had to take out a loan or pay options, like tuition options.
Right.
So Kevin did tuition options and had to take out a loan, and I just took out loans. And I mean, I'm paying almost $3,000 a month in student loans.
That just stopped me in my tracks.
Yeah.
The goosebumps of absolute terror.
Yeah.
Of you saying, I mean, good on you for keeping up with it. And I know you've been grinding really hard this year.
Still,
but
like,
that's absurd.
Yeah, and it is.
That could ruin someone's life.
Oh, absolutely. Like truly, like I'm living with family right now for free.
Yeah.
If I didn't have that option, and it is fucking hell emotionally. I'm living with my 92-year-old Eastern European grandmother who
riddled
also
with
has
dementia.
And is like clinical narcissistic personality disorder.
Yeah.
So it's quite a cocktail.
Yeah.
But my sister lives next door. My partner lives with me. We have our best friends that live on the other side. It's it's working, but it's
Yeah.
also really hard.
Yeah.
And if I could afford it, I would move the fuck out.
I mean,
but I can't.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
like I truly right now in this space, like I cannot afford to pay rent.
And can we just say for the record, we do live in an expensive city, but also she's a nurse.
Yeah.
You make good ass money.
We have the best contract in the state. Like I make the most money.
Wow.
Of like, I mean, I'm a new grad and it's like every year as you like go up steps, like you make more.
Right.
But like I have the highest paying contract at my hospital.
Wow.
In the state.
And you can't afford to live.
And I can barely afford to live on my own because
of student loans.
Yeah.
Well, not to get too conspiracy theory, but sometimes this is gonna make me sound nuts. Please, I don't want anyone to think
I'll
I'm
humble
nuts.
you,
Please.
but I'm probably just as nuts.
Humble me, but like also I just don't trust anyone or anything.
No.
And I sometimes wonder if it's purposefully like the topic of money and education around loans, credit, loan interest, all of those things, student loans. If you want to go to college is pushed on it. But I sometimes wonder if we're not educated around it as a way for them to make money.
Yes, I knew.
you know
I
what I'm
knew that's where you're
saying?
going with it, and I don't think it's conspiracy theory. I think that's what it is because if we're educated, then we don't make stupid decisions.
We don't go to college at 18 until we know what we want to do and go $60K in debt for a degree I never will use.
Well, and then the other part of it too, because while I was in school, I couldn't support myself, and then
Totally.
I mean, I was in a relationship at the time where that like it. I mean, I was married at the time, so my husband was supporting me. That like crashed and burned, and then I was left to support myself and had to go into a ton of credit card debt. So not only am I
credit cards,
dude, so not only am I drowning in student loans, I'm also paying off a credit card that I
to
like I had
survive.
to max out to survive.
to
right?
go to school,
Yes,
to get a job, to live.
to live.
I'm sorry. Just let me have a moment of rage.
Yeah,
Ugh.
a moment of rage for the like. I mean,
you know
and
what
it's
I'm
a
saying?
cycle. And I think what you're saying is exactly right. There is a lack of education because, I mean, call it what you want, but I think it's a suppression of education to make money, to
Right.
profit off of naivety.
Well, because I do think that it's kind of factual. I think everyone can agree that, you know, the more people become more powerful, the more that we know. And you know, again, I'm thankful for the schools I went to. I'm thankful for the teachers that I had, but I think that it is all a part of a system of, you know, capitalism and like everyone wants to make money. Everyone's in business trying to make money. And the fact is we are all, especially our generation, have been absolutely fucked by student loans. Well, and I'm like, nobody talked to me.
Yes.
I had no idea. I went in blind. You
Well,
know,
because it became the expectation. It was a societal expectation. Like
You have to go to college.
Have to go to college to be able to get these jobs.
Period.
It became the requirement. Now, what's really wild, I know some people who are applying for jobs and stuff, and it says it's like these entry level jobs, master's preferred. That's like the new setting yourself ahead, and it's like a $60,000 a year job, and I'm like, who paid for their master's in their education can afford to work a $60,000 a year job?
when the master's itself costs $60,000 to
At
get
best.
minimum. And that's like on top of, that's like additionally to your undergrad.
No, I am a nurse and I'm in $140,000 of student debt.
Yeah. And let's see, I'm a nanny.
I also took the long way around. but also like, that's a
What
pretty
is the
common
long-
thing.
Yeah.
I went to school for a few years, didn't
Yeah.
know what I wanted to do,
Yeah.
had prereqs, that didn't apply
Right.
to this degree.
So that's right. You had to
so I
take-
had a few extra years of school, but I think that's also super normal.
So normal. I mean, I want to stay on the topic of money, but I do have so many strong feelings about college and going to college. And I
We
think
should do an episode on that. I think that could be
Definitely.
an episode in itself. Multiple.
No, absolutely. And I think we should bring in like people that have had similar and different experiences
Mm-hmm.
to us and have different views than us, because I think we're in this transitional phase of like how we're viewing college.
Yeah.
I think we're having to look at college differently because of how absolutely fucked people are getting by
Yeah.
student loans.
Yeah.
But with that to be said, you know, I'm a private contracted nanny, and I got a degree in psychology with the like thinking I wanted to do mental health, and it took me 8 years to get it because I had to drop out, work, save money, reapply for financial aid over and over and over again. Finally got the degree, and I will never use it. I will never use it. And I am right now with like other weird little debt things, but with student loans being the majority of it, I am $70K in debt. And then I just had to take out a private loan. Oh, because what they don't educate you on is that if you aren't going to grad school, you have a FAFSA loan limit. And
this was news to me when you told me this.
This is fuck the system for not teaching us this. If you are going to school, you get your degree, use up your FAFSA, there's a limit. If you want to go back to school and it's not a master's degree, you have $60,000 to use of like federal loans. If you use that up, you're fucked.
Yeah.
So I am going back to school in the fall to get my certificate. It's not technically a master's program. It's not labeled a master's program. In paralegal, and I had to take out a $12,000 private loan with a 16% interest was the lowest I could get, and I have almost perfect credit. It's going to end up being like a $25,000, $30,000 loan when all is said and done, and I pay it. I'm going into a field where I have potential to make livable wage money, but it's just if I had known that about like federal loans and the limit you reach, it seems like it's something that I should have assumed, but we're expecting 18-year-olds to go to college and know what they want to do the rest of their lives. And if I had an education around how loans work, my educational path would have looked so different. Because heaven forbid you're not 18 and don't know what you want to do. Again, not trying to rant about colleges, but it ties into money, you know?
It really does. And the other thing too that you said was the interest rate. And so that's the other thing that I'm running into now is that, to get a lower interest rate, you have to refinance.
Yes.
To refinance, you have to have a good credit score.
Yes.
My credit score took a absolute nosedive at the end. Like when I was all of a sudden having to support myself, I couldn't pay my,
I remember that
bills.
was really devastating.
Yeah. Oh my God. That was because I had great credit. I had worked hard for it.
Many hours crying together over that.
Oh yeah. It was
rough.
like one of the most one of the few things where I have a very visceral physical reaction. Where my body is just like, I'm going to throw up. Because it makes you so sick. Because it feels like the end of the world. It feels like the
you're
biggest
not educated
black
on
mark.
it.
Yeah.
Again, it comes down to everyone know. Truly, if someone asked me what credit is right now, I have no idea.
I don't know.
I don't know what it is. What number do we start at? And sometimes it grows and sometimes it doesn't. And there's rules with credit cards that don't apply to me. Apparently, I have never missed a credit card bill, and still sometimes randomly a month it'll be like, you tanked 10 points. What the fuck?
Yeah.
I am so fed up with not knowing.
Yeah.
It's so infuriating. And so, I remember you were living in AZ and you were having to support yourself because some shit hit the fan.
Yeah.
And you were in nursing school, balls deep in nursing school. There's nothing you could do. And you're coming up with options, and we are crying on the phone together because it's like your credit, all you know is that your credit can't be bad or your life is over.
Yeah.
That's how
and it's what it felt like.
Because you just don't know.
Yeah.
Because nobody has told us what it means to have bad credit and what your options are. It's like a fear tactic to not educate us.
And that's the other thing. Now I know I could have called my credit card and kind of explained the situation. They could have worked with me, and I could have maybe come up with a payment that was affordable or paused or something.
Yeah.
But instead I just got scared, panicked, didn't pay it for months, and then was afraid to call them because then my credit card was shut off, and now my credit score is in the toilet, and now I'm embarrassed, and I still can't afford to pay it, so I still can't call them.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be like, well, I mean, because I called them, I'm like, what can we do? And they're like, well, we suggest you call us when you can afford a payment, and then we can work out a plan. And I'm like, okay, well, it's going to be a few months.
And that's fine, though.
And then that's fine.
Yeah.
And it worked out just
and it
fine.
Worked out.
They were able to erase all the late fees and things like that. They were able to work with me on.
Right.
But I mean, I could have there was so much learning involved with that. But now, if I wanted to, for instance, refinance and get a consolidate all my loans under one loan, I have to have good enough credit to do that.
Yeah.
Which I don't have because I'm dog paddling, trying to just
you're working your ass off to get yourself back to a place after being thrown into a situation and having to provide for yourself.
But I think that's the case for so many people too. It's we just get thrown these life situations, and because of inflation and our jobs are not livable wages, we have a really hard time having a cushion set aside. And,
Yeah.
Another thing too, that like I've thought a lot about recently is kind of what we're marketed to be expected to do.
Oh, that's interesting.
You know?
Yeah.
So like the way like our homes are supposed to look, or the things we're supposed to have, or the like activities we're supposed to be participating in, and how expensive all that is. And it's hard to like, I think there's this social pressure to
Couldn't agree more.
engage in all those things.
Yeah. Yep.
And I don't watch the news, but Baca does.
Of course.
So I hear like tidbits, and at work, like a lot of my patients have the news on in the room. So I'll just hear a little bit. So it's like I get enough news just in passing.
Yeah.
But something that I heard was like, I think US debt is like at, I'm going to fuck up the number. It's at like the highest it's been. I want to say like,
isn't it trillions?
well, no. Like credit, like consumer, like credit card debt.
Overall,
like,
I was like,
no, like credit card debt is like 60% of Americans are like, you know, I don't even know the number, but it was like an astonishing number, like that so many of us are in like up to our eyeballs in credit card debt.
Yeah.
But I think that kind of speaks to, there's all this social pressure to like continue to engage in this way, right? And then on top of that, our economy is not doing well.
No. Well,
and like following 2020 and with all the inflation and like, I mean, just to go to the grocery store, I went to the grocery store, dude, and I just bought myself groceries for the week.
Right.
And it was $200.
yeah, easy.
$200 for 1 week of groceries. That is insane. So I think that coupled with, okay, but still participate in all these things. And we're taught like not really anything. So it's like, well, I guess I'll just put it on my credit card and I'll pay it off. And then that snowballs until that payment becomes overwhelming.
Well, I think that's something to really touch on. And I will say, I think, at least in my experience, again, I don't want to make things generational, but I love the term for what we're talking about with like the keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah.
I think it has so much to do, or social media has really impacted it. I think people have always compared themselves to other people, but we no longer have the option to just like stay in our lane and focus on our family or our living situation. You know, if you have a goddamn TikTok or an Instagram, which we are the generation that first grew up with social media, it is amplified what everyone else is doing. Yeah. And it feeds into this vicious cycle of like, well, I'm seeing people do this thing. I want to do this thing. I can only do it by going into debt. But because nobody fucking talks about money, you don't know what that person was doing to get those things.
Yes.
You know, so then it's like we're making assumptions and living beyond our means.
Yes. Or you think that they have the means to do that thing, but maybe they're living beyond theirs.
We're all doing the same fucking thing. And if we were to talk about money more, I don't think we wouldn't be in as much debt, because we have to take accountability, right? Like there is parts of it where I'm like, fuck the world, fuck America. I can't make enough money. I'm drowning in student debt. I'm so angry. But also, admittedly, you know, I hit walls where I'm like, but I'm only able to be alive once. Fuck this. I'll put it on my credit card.
Right.
Fuck this. I'll spend what little bit of savings I have left on something that I usually regret it.
Yeah.
Unless it's travel, I regret it.
Yeah.
And I think it's just, I just have no idea that everybody is going through that. I think honestly talking to you is what made me realize, well, maybe it's not just me being terrible with money. Maybe it is this constant cycle of like, you're forced into debt to go to college and get a career, start a career, whatever the fuck you want to say. And then on top of it, I'm only human. So when I see bitches on Instagram and TikTok going to France every other second, I'm like, I'm a person too. Yeah. I want to be able to have these experiences, and I'm doing everything I can to get there. But in the meantime, I'm not allowed to enjoy my life. Yeah. So it's this, and like, I know that's terrible. Like, I know that's not how it should be. You should only be doing things, and if you have the means to do it, like fun, extracurriculars, shop, buy the things. But I'm 30 years old, and I still am not there financially. So it's like, am I just, you know, Gen Xers tend to be that way. If you don't have the fun, or like whoever, older people than me, if you don't have the funds, like you shouldn't be spending that money. And it's like,
but that's such a shame. Like,
so
it's like, shame. Well, it's like telling people, well, like, I mean, if you're 16 and you don't want to get pregnant, then you shouldn't be having sex.
Right. And that's just unrealistic.
Well, exactly. So the other piece of it is like, I have slowly over the last couple of years, like started to try to like educate myself more, or like, you know, find resources of people who like, okay, I like what they have to say around money.
Yeah.
And there's a couple people that I do like, and they have like mindsets of like, okay, how do you make your money like work for you? And it's like, okay, these are the things I want to do. How do I make that happen?
Right.
But I will say it's like, it's really hard for me to stay consistent with that.
Yeah.
So it's like they have these great tools. And I think part of it too, like when I listen to the podcast or like listen to the audiobooks and stuff, like I do get like this inspiration, but then I just go back. It's like hard. I kind of go back to like my old habits.
Exactly. Same here.
I was talking to my friend who's a therapist, and because I was saying how I was like, I really struggle with money and food in the same way.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've gotten to a really good place with food where I'm not like binging and restricting, but I still struggle with that with money. And she goes, well, actually, money, like binge eating disorders or like eating disorders are almost inextricably linked with spending disorders. And it comes from the same place.
Chills.
Yeah.
They feel the same.
Yeah.
They
because
do. For me,
like,
it's an impulse thing.
Exactly. It's impulsive, and it's like feeding an emotional thing.
Yeah. It's like filling a void.
A void emotionally.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's like it's interesting that I've like gotten to like a bit more of the root with like food wise. Like I feel like I'm in a lot healthier place. I'm in the healthiest place I've ever been with food.
I love that.
Which is huge. It's so cool.
That. Never gets old to hear.
Yeah, but like I'm not paying attention to my money. Like I know, okay, like I want to eat like this way because I feel good. Right. But I haven't gotten to that place with money. And that's kind of an unlock I just thought of. Like if I'm approaching food this way, how can I apply that to my spending? And like what makes me feel good? So it's like protein, I feel satiated. And then I don't binge on like cookies and like all these like I don't know things that are not going to keep me full for the long run. So I'm like, okay, if I know that like having a savings account or having investments feels good, why am I still not eating that? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess I would not push back, but I guess the question I would want to ask you with that then is there some sort of like subconscious or like unlocked fear about, well, if I healed my issues around food, if I heal my shit with money, what's going to fill that void? You know?
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm not saying that you're just forever going to have a void, but I think maybe this is me being a little bit dark, but I do think that there's always going to be a challenge in life, or there's going to be something that makes us feel empty, and it's scary to address that emptiness. And so I think, you know, at least for me, like buying things, you know, I'm not out of control with it. I just have never had money, but
I have definitely been out of control with it.
Yeah,
like, and I go in seasons.
Yeah, same. And like, I think that buying things does in the moment, it's a quick fix. It's a quick little like hit, right?
Yes.
Like, bam, okay, I feel a little better. I'm not thinking about this thing. So, you know, it just makes me wonder, or at least for me, I feel like it's scary to think if I heal all of these attainable things.
It's like whack-a-mole.
Yeah. If I keep healing it, what is going to be the next thing to fill that void that I feel like I always am going to have? I'm okay with it. But like, there's always going to be a little something that I'm going to be stressing about.
Well, and I think that's the internal work.
Totally,
right?
Yeah.
So like, okay, what is the void? Like, what are you trying to like fill, or what feels empty? And I think that requires going inward.
Yeah.
And that's not, it's easier to go spend something, or it's easier to eat something that tastes really good.
Right.
That like gives you that dopamine hit.
Yeah.
Rather than like, well, another thing I thought of, this is funny, because I'm like, well, I'll get to that, but I also know I'll forget, because I was going to say it relates to ADHD, but I'm having the most ADHD glitch right now.
This is so poetic.
So this is full circle. Anyway, a lot of people with ADHD really struggle with spending and with eating.
My partner can attest to that. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's both of those things, because it's like,
God, he really, all of his problems linked to ADHD.
Because it's that dopamine loop.
Yeah.
And so when your brain is wired in a way where you're looking for that dopamine hit, it's hard to quell that a bit. But it goes back to like, okay, how can I harness that in a really good way?
Right.
Like, how do I follow my like interests and passions and the sparks that I have, and like, like go with that? But then also, how do I channel it? Because what I've realized, in this kind of area is like, it's like a lot like I was just getting on a horse and just letting it ride me around without grabbing the fucking reins.
Yeah. It was
and
just
it's like,
bucking.
just grab the reins.
Yeah.
Take control.
Do the thing.
And that's how I felt with like food and with just kind of my life. And especially in the last like year, I felt like I kind of just like let go of the reins a little bit. And now I feel like I'm like taking the reins back and I feel a lot better. And I always feel so much better. And I notice it with my manifestations coming through when I'm actually in my money and I'm paying attention to how I'm spending it and I'm having to face it. Then I like have things that come through a lot easier because I'm like working with that energy and I'm respecting that energy because I think there's so much shame around it. And the other thing, what helped me, like when I was in my earlier kind of like healing part of the binge eating was, and I was still at that time in my life, I was still tracking food. Right. But, which I don't do anymore. But, so I got to a point where I'm like, okay, if I'm going to binge eat it, I have to track the binge.
Right.
And I think it's the same thing with spending where right now I think tracking my money is helpful for me. Like, at one point in my life, tracking my food intake did help me because it taught me about what a portion looks like.
Patterns are everything,
yeah,
you know?
because I didn't know what a fucking portion was.
Yeah.
Like I never learned that. Like my family overserved and I was, told to like finish my meal and like I was never allowed to like listen to my hunger cues.
Croatians and Italians, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it was a mess. So anyway, I think applying that concept of like, okay, this is what a portion looks like. This is what a budget category looks like.
Yeah.
You're allowed to spend money on these fun things, but you have to keep it in this range for a little bit until you can learn what that feels like.
Totally.
I think that is, I don't know, like a big step.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I hear that like from people in like the fitness space. It's like, okay, that served them for a time, but now they don't track or now they don't count everything and they're not so obsessive because they learned.
Yeah.
And now you can be a little bit more relaxed or like, have a better flow with it because you learned.
Isn't it interesting?
The
like
discipline.
this concept you're talking about, it's like it really generally speaking, like, by not restricting, but like having so much control, it for you eventually does lead to more freedom.
Yes.
Right. Like like you are holding on to things and you're taking the reins. And while that doesn't set, and maybe in the moment or while you're going through that process, it feels like you don't have a lot of freedom. You're really just focusing so that at like end game is that you can be liberated from the stresses around money.
Yes. I could not have said it better because I think it's this concept I was talking about in therapy. It's like, I can't, like if I'm trying to pour the foundation, right? I can't keep pouring foundation into all these other places because I'll never be able to get legs, like I'll never be able to get this house off the ground, so to speak.
You're going to be like, just like staying in this place of like pouring concrete and it's drying too fast before you can move on to the next step.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think what you just said, I mean, you said it so perfectly, but it's like, there's no long game. Like there's
no longevity to it. If you're just like, fluttering by and just like, oh, I'll worry about that later. Like that's how I'm spending my money right now. And it's why I'm not making progress. Yeah. Because for me, it's interesting. Like I mean, it just is a sign that I should probably try out your theory, but, I am just so anxious all the time in general. Yeah. I am anxiety. And I think that when I let myself go to the place of thinking about money, it is so overwhelming for me that I completely shut down. I completely fucking shut down to the point where I will be like, well, I'm not eating for the whole month because I can't spend $50 on and it's really toxic. And it's coming from a place of me being so scared of money that I just completely deny doing the work. And it's not sustainable. Take note, not sustainable to not think about money. I am a living proof that every month I am so fucking anxious the minute the first of the month comes and all of my bills come out and I'm like, all right, I have $200 to my name for the rest of the month. It is so awful, but it's like I think like we talked about in our last episode, and we've talked about like with creative projects and anything else, it's always that first fucking step. Yeah. Even tonight when we were setting up for the podcast and I was talking about how I've seen on her computer, she's got like fucking categorized notes of all of the shit she spends her money on, and you're tracking it. I saw it. Like you track everything and you have categories and goals for how you want to spend your money. And I think that is the first step. It's so for some reason, honestly, for me, if there was one part of life that I could just not Just take it out and never have to think about it again. It's money. And I don't know when that time is going to come where I don't mean this to talk shit about myself. This is just me being factual. Like, I need to grow the hell up and face it. And I have so much fear around it.
Yeah, there's something where there's like I've done this in other areas and with money, but like the avoidance of it.
Oh,
it's
avoid.
avoid.
I need it tattooed on my forehead. Yeah.
And it is like one of the most detrimental things because like we talked about, it's like when things get hard, there's so much better on the other side.
Yeah.
Right. And the longer you avoid it, the harder it gets. But it's like, if we just like live with the discomfort of like, okay, these are my boundaries around money. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
For right now.
Yeah.
So that I don't have to be so boundaried later, because I don't want to have boundaries around money. I don't want to have to worry about like what the price tag is at the grocery store. I don't want to do that. I want to get the steak that is like grass fed, grass finished, regenerative, farm raised, local. I like all the things. I mean, I'm going to bring everything back to steak because I'm a slut for
You're a slut for steak.
That being said, I don't want to have to be like, well, it's $17.99 a pound. Like, I can't afford that. Like, I want to get like this brand of ice cream or this brand of butter or eggs.
Yeah.
I want to get it because it's good quality.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. The fucking price of eating healthy should not be more expensive.
No, it shouldn't.
Anyway, if you want to get into conspiracy theories there, that's a whole
We should do a whole conspiracy theory, like our favorite conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
And
Ooh, okay.
Because there's so much shame around conspiracy theories, but like some of them are real. Some of them
Yeah.
are fucking awful,
Yeah.
but like some of them are real.
Yeah.
But
it is like a shame thing.
There's so much shame around it.
And it's become political now.
So political
It's
because
funny.
our politics are corrupt.
But I want to have like control now around my spending so that later I don't have to worry about the price tag.
Yeah.
But the longer I'm like not paying attention and not taking care and respecting, that's the biggest thing. The longer I don't respect my money,
Right.
the farther off that freedom is.
I agree. No, I it's really hard having this conversation right now because I agree with everything you're saying and I'm practicing 0% of it.
Honestly, same though. I will say this last couple weeks, I have been like, I use a budgeting app. Okay, here's the thing. It's the Every Dollar by Dave Ramsey. I don't like Dave Ramsey.
Right.
There's a lot that he stands for that I
even
don't
know who
like.
he is because I avoid anything with finance.
But he preaches like cash only, like no credit, like credit is evil, like all this stuff. So it's like, and there's a lot of limiting mindset and beliefs around it.
Right.
But his budgeting tool I do really like.
Nice.
There's other people who like they use Excel and stuff, but I don't know how the fuck to use Excel. Polly's really good at, my sister. Like she's the one who produces all of our episodes and
She's great. We love
video
her.
production and everything like that. But she is like wired in a way. She's like that very like math mind.
She has taught me more
like
about
math,
money
music.
than anyone.
Yeah, she has taught me a ton about money, and she's
so
done
good
really
with
good.
money.
She's Capricorn rising.
God damn, she knows her shit.
She knows her shit.
Yeah,
and
she's amazing.
She has like sent me a couple good resources, and there's one girl in particular. She's our age.
No, she sent me the same one.
Okay, I can't think of her name.
I have
We
no
should
idea.
include it in show notes because it's so good.
I love that.
Yeah, because I think what she stands for is so much about like make your money work for you and like here's how to like, especially. Oh, I think it's financial feminist.
To be honest with you, it's not even close to
She
being in my
went
brain.
to Portland State. Or no, University of Portland.
Anywhere in Portland. I think
She
it is
w-
UFP.
UFP,
Yeah. I
yeah.
remember Polly telling me that. I think it is UFP.
Beside the point.
Yeah.
She has sent me some great resources and ways to kind of like think of money in a different way that doesn't feel so like overwhelming.
Yeah.
Scary.
Yeah.
And like,
Our
and
podcast
it
is
makes it
great.
feel like it's something I'm allowed to talk about or,
Yeah.
because I think that there's like this, like feeling of like, well, I don't know enough. I'm not educated enough.
100%.
I can't speak to it.
Couldn't agree
right?
more.
So to go back to, I started a tangent, but like I've been in my budgeting app twice this month.
Yes,
Which
girl.
is like, so I'll go through and track all my spending. And then it kind of like, it gives me like, okay, this is what I allocated for the month in this area.
Mm-hmm.
Like you put in your, like what your projected income is. And then you put in all your bills and you can categorize them. And then you like put in like, okay, I want to budget like $200 on like like beauty products, or I need to spend, or I have $180 to spend on gas. And then you go through, and every time you spend something, it gives you a running total of how much you have left in that category.
Right.
And it tells you how over or under you are. So then I can like go and adjust other categories.
Cool.
Super helpful.
I think having a visual with money is really nice.
It is.
You know?
Yeah, for me, I need that.
Yeah. And it's better than logging into your bank
And
bank
I have to
account.
face every single charge.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Too. And so
Yeah,
things
yeah.
I forgot about, it's like, oh God, I spent a fucking lot of money on impulsive purchase on Amazon.
Yeah.
Let's just say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I will say it's a new goal of mine to like be more involved in my money, because this last year I've completely avoided it because I didn't have enough to support myself. So I'm like, well, I don't have enough anyway. So what's it matter if I'm like tracking it?
Yeah.
Because I'm still underwater.
Yeah,
Every
totally.
month.
Yeah.
But then a lot of times it's actually helped my anxiety around it, because I've built it up in my head that I'm so far underwater that it's like when I sit down and do it, I'm like, oh, I'm actually not.
No, it grounds you. It's kind of like Chloe. Like come back down to earth. Touch some fucking grass.
Touch some grass.
Touch some grass. It's okay.
Touch some fucking grass. You've actually broke even this month. You're not underwater. You're not behind.
That's great.
And so
I
it's
love
actually
that.
helped my anxiety. When I like,
That's awesome.
the more I avoid it, the worse my anxiety gets.
Yeah, because then you can just like let your mind go. Then you can just be like, all right, well, I'm going to be homeless next month because Lord knows I do that.
Exactly. Because the anxiety story is so crazy when that fear runs the story, or runs the show. So anyway, I think that's kind of one of the biggest takeaways or lessons I've learned is to ease my anxiety, I need to do an actionable.
Yeah.
And for me, that's like actually just facing it.
Yeah. I think I tend to be like avoidantly anxious. And so I think, people listening to this, like you can just see like there are like you, like, not that you haven't been avoidant, but I guess I'm just really in this place of feeling really stuck, and like I just don't, as if I'm still in the mindset of like if I can pay the bills, I'm okay.
Yeah.
And I
think that still is a win.
It is a win. And that's the thing is you have to celebrate the small moments, because at the end of the day, when you have the debt that we and everyone else has, when you have the amount of bills that, we have in this current day and age, it's fucking crazy. And if you want to do anything, it becomes a bill. So for me, it's like the fact that I can like independently support myself is what I'm trying to celebrate right now. And everyone has a right to do that. And everyone, like everything is really in a different place with money. I guess it's just for me, it's crazy. Money's the one thing that I feel like, I'll do the personal work. I'll heal the relationships. I'll say the sorries. I'll do all of the things to better my life. Money is the one that like I keep it in a corner in a dark space. And it stays there.
Yeah.
And it's awful.
It keeps you small by doing that.
It does.
You know? But I think we should definitely have another conversation. Like, I think this should be another, we should do definitely a part 2.
I want Polly on here.
I would love Polly on here.
And Michael.
Because, I think that would actually be great.
Yeah. Polly's
and
partner.
I think I want to open the conversation up. Like, what kinds of things do people still have questions on? Like, what are your relationships with money? I think that there's so much more.
Where did you get started? What did you prioritize with budgeting or like what you wanted to save for? And I know that I've spoken with Polly, and she, like, it was like for an hour and a half, and it's something she's so passionate about, because I think when she started taking money seriously, her whole life changed. It seemed
absolutely.
Like she was liberated because she took control and took the reins and figured out how to spend her money in a way that worked for her and her lifestyle.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So I'd love to know what their first step was, because I know Polly was educated like you, and I think she's told me that her meeting Michael, her partner, really was inspirational for her.
Yes, I will say that.
Game changer.
And I'll say Kevin has been very inspirational for me around money, but in a different way. He has such like an optimism around it, and such a like abundance mindset, and such a growth mindset around money that it's really like, today I was expressing to him like, hey, like, we have this goal at the end of the year, and I'm actually having a lot of like limiting thoughts around it, but he's taught me a lot about investing.
Nice.
Which I knew nothing about. And I still really don't know a lot about. But like, I did, for the first time, I deposited money into an investment account. Nice. I haven't done anything with it.
Yeah.
But it's at least there.
Yeah.
And so I think it'd be really cool to have like those conversations with Polly, with Michael, with Kevin, like around what that looks like. Because like it's so overwhelming.
Money,
It's so, like,
money ruins my life.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that to be dramatic. I don't even mean that to be like funny or witty. When I tell you that most of the darkest things in my life revolve around money, even relationships falling apart, it just, you know, the keeping up with the Joneses, the social media aspect of money and what money people have, I truly feel like it's so unfair that money is the most necessary thing in life, essentially. And it is the thing that really has diminished my worth, my mental health, the way I move through the world. And I want to end it obviously on a positive note, but I don't think it would be realistic for me to do that. It is my least favorite part of life. It really is.
Yeah.
It's a very terrible thing to have to deal with. Or
I think when we don't have the education around it, I think that's the flip though. That's the other thing is I think that there's like, we can change that.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
like you can just like, we can learn more.
Right.
We have so many like resources available to us in so many ways that I think what eases that anxiety or that like complete resentment of a thing is education around it.
Yeah.
And like teaching yourself and like giving yourself like power and control around it.
Yeah.
Cause like you not having education, like you have no power.
Yeah, right.
Like there's like no way.
That's what I'm saying though. Like I think that's a lot of the reason that we aren't taught about money. I think that's why we're told that money is a taboo topic that like people don't want to talk about, because the less we know, the more we make irresponsible or ignorant decisions around how we spend it, how we prioritize it, how we, you know, save it, what we put money into, what we don't. It's the center of our ability to live the lives that we want to have, and yet it's the thing that we are taught the least amount. We're taught about the least. I'll say that. It's crazy.
No, it really is.
It's a crazy cycle.
And I think this too, like this space, this conversation, like having this conversation like openly, I think is a way to kind of keep us accountable.
Sure.
Because that's like people have like accountability partners or whatever in like food and in working out and like in other like ways of like bettering themselves. But like, it's really because it's taboo. You don't really have that with other people with money.
There's nobody in my life that I talk about money with. No, 0%. And it's not that I'm someone that I do love privacy. Yeah. I am a deeply private person. But I have no interest in talking about money because I have yet, except for actually like, you know, this conversation is lovely and it is very healing and empowering to even just say like, fuck money. I hate it. It makes me so angry. But there's always the way to, you know, turn it around. Like I think where there's dark, there's lightness, and you're doing a good job of like, no, but like you can take control. Yeah. You can change the narrative around money once you work through, like, I think I have to work through that resentment so much. But other than you, I've never had someone in my life that I have had a positive conversation about money with. Yeah, because there's a lot of like, well, you should do that. Why did you spend this money? Or you really shouldn't. Right. You know, and that's another, I think we can get deeper like in another episode about like the shame around money. But there's like one more thing I want to say before we wrap up. What you just said reminded me of this girl that she came up in my TikTok feed and she was talking about like, she's always been like, you know, like if you, like an overweight person. Sure. And she has never really had a huge problem with it because she's like, I'm hilarious. I'm really charming. I'm cool. I love you know, her. All these things. Yeah. And like, she's like, I'm not unattractive. Yeah. So she's like, I've never really thought about like my weight too much. Right. And then she started dating her like now boyfriend. And she was like talking about, I don't remember. Oh, she had said like, oh, that girl looks so cute in that outfit. But like, I feel like it's never something I would wear. Right. And he's like, oh, well, why? And she's like, oh, well, it's just like, we just have different body types. And like, I just wouldn't wear that with my body type. And and so that was kind of the start of the conversation. And he was like, but you like what she's wearing. Right. And she's like, well, yeah. And he's like, okay, I'm going to like, kind of present this to you in this way. You have all these things that you like love about yourself. And the one thing that you don't like, that you don't love, you have the power to change it. Right.
And like it's totally in your control to
Right.
like do something different if you want to wear like that shirt or whatever you are like creating limits around. Right. And she's like, and that was like the one thing that kind of like flipped my mindset. And she's like, and I didn't go like lose a ton of weight like right away after that, but like that stuck with me. It's like, it's all in my control. And I think that's how it is with money. It's like, it is in our control, but it's just a matter of taking it.
Right. And I mean, I think that goes with like so many of these taboo topics. It is in our control. And I think it's like finding the tools and finding the support to speak on how frustrating it is. Like and allowing ourselves to be angry and frustrated. And I don't like feeling ignorant. And I think that's why I'm so resentful of money. Besides it also just being a pain in the ass is like, I don't like feeling dumb. I know I'm not a dumb person. I know I'm pretty smart and I can like pick up on things pretty fast. And money is constantly making me feel stupid. I don't appreciate that. And I think it comes back to like, I wish I was more educated around it. But you're absolutely right that it's so important to educate yourself. And it's just what, like, you know, Polly and I have said it, you and I have said it. It's that taking that first step. It really is like, yes, you're in control, but I think there's a lot of mental shit if you're an anxious person that it's so hard to just take that step. And it comes back down to what do you need? Is it talking? Is it working something through to get yourself to that point? And learning enough about yourself to know like, what can I do to feel like I have the mental, emotional, physical strength to take that first step? You know? And so for me, like where, yes, I think it's really important to take control. I'm a step behind you and I'm trying to learn about myself. Like, how can I equip myself in handling money that I'm not going to feel like a failure or stupid or completely overwhelmed or anxious. Like I'm still learning about myself, how to get to that point that I think you're at right now. You know, there are so many steps and everyone's on a different journey. And I, for some reason, have had the hardest time taking the reins around money. And that's just a me thing. It is. But I think self-awareness for me is always the first step. You know?
Well, and I think you at least have that. So I'm curious, like, as you kind of like dive into that a little bit more, what you end up kind of discovering.
Well, I mean, we've been talking for how long? And I think that we're going to have to do multiple episodes on money, right? Because there's just so many layers to it. And I think this is just like scratching the surface of like, hey guys, guess what? I think that like we all fucking hate money. I think we all have stressed or had a hard time with money. I wish we would talk about it more. I do. And I think that
we should talk about it more. And we will talk about it more.
We will talk about it more. I think it's something that like when we're having
there's
a moment
a lot
of stress,
here.
Hold each other accountable. I'm going to tell you when I'm like going through the meltdown I had about taking out that personal loan to you. God, sorry about that voice memo, but it happens. Shit happens, you know. You have to. There's no shame in whatever struggles I think we're having with money. We're all having them in very different ways, you know.
Or very similar ways too.
Overwhelming, but it's okay.
On that note, we'll wrap it up here. But there will be kind of part 2, part 3. Like I think we will.
Infinity.
I think it'll be a rolling topic like that'll come up as we continue. But
and linked to other topics. You know, I think
it's so tangled up in a lot of human experience.
It always comes back down to money. I hate that, but it's fine.
But, well, never mind. We'll leave it.
Okay. Now I'm curious. Cliffhanger. You just made it a cliffhanger. It's fine.
A cliffhanger. Come back next time because I have thoughts.
Ooh, okay.
All right. Okay. Thank you guys. Love you. We'll talk to you next time. Okay, one last thing before you go. There is no us without you. Go like and subscribe our show on your favorite streaming service and go follow us on all socials at Let's Get Taboo. Chat with you next time.
Fuck, that went way too late. Sorry, dude.
Dude, don't be sorry at all. I think that was great. I don't think that there was like a natural stopping point before that.
No, I don't either. And I think there's editing. I think that's like totally how
it's gonna be totally fine.
Okay,
I'm gonna
stop that. I'm like, let's do this.
I can see Polly putting together a montage of us trying to get off the phone.
Oh my god, I don't want her to. Jesus.
My phone died.